what I found is that there was a little bit of delay between Substack and the live, but notifying me, but it goes live almost instantly. So let's see here. It looks like we're doing good. Let's give it a little bit. All right, we're live on X. Are we live on YouTube? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's streaming there, so we'll see soon enough. And we are live on. All right, we're live on Substack. Hello, everybody. Matt here from Daily Crypto News, and we have Kyle. What's up, Kyle?
Good morning, good afternoon, I guess, wherever everybody is. Still
And
morning
what?
here on the West Coast.
Oh, you're West Coast, man. You get up early, bro.
Yes. It's the time change today, actually. It threw me off.
Yeah, I think it threw us all off. I had a tea time at eight or at 10:30 this morning, and I woke up. My alarm went off at 8:30. I was like, man, this feels so early. And I was like, oh yeah, we went forward. I'm hurting.
Yeah,
Got the coffee and
yeah,
everything.
right. Still drinking coffee at this hour. But excited. It's Sunday. It's a good day here.
Absolutely. So this was a busy week. We're gonna get straight into it, and without a little bit of fluff. A lot of people didn't like our talk last week about hotel rooms and too much conference talk. So we're gonna go straight into the news. You know what? I don't care what they liked or not. I liked it, and I know Kyle, you liked it too. So it doesn't matter. But today we're going to talk about the strategic Bitcoin reserve. Obviously, that is the biggest news of the day. We also are going to talk about CZ. CZ has made some comments about what to do about long-term crypto investments and ethical long-term crypto investment. We're also going to go into a lot of listener questions today because we had a lot of good ones. And honestly, this past week, listeners have been reaching out to us quite a bit. You can go reach out to us at dailycryptonews.net. You can go find us on Spotify, Daily Crypto News. In every episode, you can leave questions or comments. I'm going to reply to all of them. And if I don't reply to them, that means I'm saving them for the show or a live stream. And you can also email both of us at matt@dailycryptonews.net or kyle@dailycryptonews.net. We should start at the top, sir. I'm going to start at the
Let's
top.
do
I'm
it.
going to just break it down for everybody really quick. This is what came out last week. It was this tweet from Donald Trump, and Donald Trump first tweeted, "A U.S. crypto reserve will elevate the critical industry for years of corrupt attacks by the Biden administration, which is why my executive order on digital assets directed on the presidential working group to move forward with on a crypto strategic reserve, including XRP, Solana, ADA, and I'll make sure the U.S. crypto capital is the crypto capital of the world. We are making America great again." There's something missing from that, Kyle. What's missing from that?
Bitcoin.
So an hour later, our good old buddy, Mr. Donald Trump, then finally tweets Bitcoin and said, oh, my bad, y'all. And obviously, Bitcoin and Ethereum. I love Bitcoin and Ethereum. Well, Kyle, you want to take it from there and just and walk us through the days after that?
Um, my first instinct was always that he meant those Bitcoin and Ethereum like automatically in that
Mm-hmm.
tweet, and then had to come back and like clarify.
Mm-hmm.
Because people take those tweets as like edicts, as like direct public orders, and so yeah, I mean it includes, but it's a bad way to lead with those three versus Bitcoin and Ethereum if you're going to choose out of the group. Um, I have my qualms with all three of those Bitcoin, or sorry, not Bitcoin, but at least Cardano, Ripple, and Solana. Um, I don't think it's super smart to have them as a part of a Bitcoin reserve. Um, Even though they are like the quote unquote five most valuable tokens, I guess, per market cap. I don't necessarily think that means like the greatest store of value. Um, at this point in the market, it means they're the most stable. But in crypto, things have come and gone, and Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to to start diving into the weeds here, but
Yeah, no
yeah.
worries. I agree with you. I think it's interesting that they led with them, but that kind of goes with to our conversation and what we're actually going to be talking about is leaving. First of all, the president leaving out Bitcoin and Ethereum in that tweet. It kind of shows you one thing, and I think that goes to what we're going to really talk about today. The strategic Bitcoin crypto reserve Bitcoin reserve stockpile was announced. It wasn't what everybody thought it was going to be. It was saying, hey, we are going to not sell the Bitcoin that we have. And David Sachs and Trump came on to the on media's, if you want to talk about socials or traditional, and said, hey, we're just not going to sell the Bitcoins. And if we didn't sell previous Bitcoins, we would have about $7 billion in our treasury right now, instead of selling it for whatever it was, $400 million back in the day, or whatever they sold it for. And Mark Cuban is one of those guys that got some of that Bitcoin, and he's pretty stoked about that. Um, so a lot of people got rich by buying cheap Bitcoin from the government on auction years and years ago, but the government didn't. One of the questions and one of the things that I want to talk to you about, Kyle, is is first of all, the number went down because they did not mention that the United States will buy more Bitcoin. They just said, hey, we're just going to keep what we have, which is great. But people really wanted them to pump their bags and say stuff like, oh, no capital gains taxes on Bitcoin, or we're going to start pumping bags and buy Solana and XRP. They didn't say any of that. But one thing I do want to ask you about, because I think this is a ethical concern, and I know that me and you love to talk about ethical concerns as in our private lives when we talk to each other. The Bitcoin strategic Bitcoin reserve is from civil asset forfeiture. So basically, this Bitcoin was acquired by people doing illegal things. They found this Bitcoin, and now it's part of these assets that they seize through criminal forfeiture and proceedings and civil forfeiture and so on and so forth. And so my question to you is I don't know if I like this incentive. Now let me just frame it for everybody and how this usually works in most Western countries. Now I'm not going to say if you're in certain countries, they'll just take your stuff and then they'll, you'll see the cops driving around in your car like next week, and there's nothing you can do about it. They're the cops and you're not. But in the U.S.,
Hmm.
Germany, I know, and in other countries, uh, you have to, if you have assets, you have to sell them in a certain amount of time, or if they're not part of a criminal proceeding, or if they're not part of evidence, you either sell the assets or destroy the assets. And now it looks like there is incentive for the government, if they're seizing a cryptocurrency or say a Bitcoin, to keep it because number might go up. And I'm worried about the incentive here behind this. By not selling this Bitcoin on auction means the government could capitalize off of these proceedings. Now, again, the government, and you always have to worry about like the finagling of the government and what are they going to do on the back end? Are they, stopping somebody at a stoplight and putting some crack on their seat and saying, "Hey, you've been smoking crack. We're going to arrest you." Planting a gun on them. We know how that works. Next, your assets are seized and they're rolling your Lambo. I don't know if I like this way of going about it. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, the idea of uh, the government not going directly to uh, the competitive market and buying Bitcoin and going ahead and starting this reserve with, as you put it, assets seized from civil forfeiture and criminal proceedings. Um, yeah, I mean, I can understand how that's how that's unethical. It's not how things have done in the past. So, um, you know, following and streamlining through kind of if there's a version or some way of calling something a Trump doctrine, it's in a lot of ways doing things that haven't been done before, or like trying to at least. Um, and so yeah, this is something that is something that's new. Your point there about incentivization from the government being able and incentivizing. Um, yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting because the SEC has been under the Trump administration had been given like a new task force. There is stuff where like the IRS is being gutted or attempted to be gutted by the Trump. But yeah, I see your point in like incentivization, like long term. If you know Trump's not going to hopefully be around in the government for so long, maybe he could pull a. It'd be interesting if he did like a John Quincy Adams and just went and became like a senator or some shit. But uh, yeah, like doing this incentivization thing is interesting because yeah, long term, like thinking about it, like the government's just going to want to have more Bitcoin. Um, if you think about the world being digitalized, um, but I'm not somebody who thinks that Bitcoin should be the world currency. Um, I think the world's too big in a lot of ways, and people transact in a myriad of different ways on various different ways. Like, I definitely don't think like fishermen down at the docks need to be using Bitcoin to transact, or like, yeah, a lot of daily quotidian type things. So yeah. Anyways, yeah, the incentivization thing is like is the point here. I think is important to make because yeah, the government will then now have, like the FBI will have incentivization to like go after cybersecurity people or just be harder and find ways to like manipulate. Because like I've interviewed some people who have had like this type of stuff happen to them, where they were like early Bitcoin miners, and then the Ross Ulbricht thing is even an example of this, where people who've been given Bitcoin now, there's like certain addresses people think that are like tied to him that moved for the first time when he got out of jail, but the government does take it. Like this guy I interviewed one time said he didn't get his computer back for like years, and then he estimated that they took like 30% of the Bitcoin off of it. And it's like, okay, they just take stuff from people, and that's what like civil forfeiture kind of is like all over the country. Like police, and there's a lot of investigative reporting on this, like police being incentivized to just like take stuff from people.
100%. That is literally what I'm trying
Yeah.
to get into. And Ross Ulbricht is actually a very good point. People like Ross, people like maybe Tornado Cash, or people with like privacy coins, or even people that are working in the space to, make the chain better, if it's Bitcoin, or like maybe the Lightning Network and like Starknet. Like these people, like Elizabeth Stark, but these people now could be targets if Bitcoin is, and we go to a digital like society, and like a strategic Bitcoin reserve is becoming something big. For example, we do get that, what people say, $1 million Bitcoin, or we get that $2 million or $3 million Bitcoin. Now we're talking about really substantial funds that can be leveraged as in the treasuries. Do you just start going and putting these people that are maybe evading or trying to use privacy and evading KYC or AML laws in to stake their Bitcoin? Or if they were arrested already, because of, I would say, again, kind of dubious reasons. Ross Ulbricht is a great example. Do you just take his Bitcoin and then what? Do you just keep it and it becomes valuable like that? And the thing is because you're keeping it creates the perverse incentive. It's not it's the selling of it. It's not like, oh, we're seizing your assets because they're ill-gotten gains. Which again, there's an argument to say that that shouldn't happen. It's different when you say, oh, now we keep it. It's now on our balance sheet, and we're richer because of our seizing your assets because of your criminal, right? That's totally different. And so I'm very skeptical about this. Now, is this how they're going to operate in the future? These have already been gotten. They've already been in possession by the government. I don't think this sets good precedent. Will we see more Bitcoin being added to it because of seizures in the future? And then again, if this becomes, now this could be a long-term play. Now I'm going to go way out there in the future. Let's call it 50 years, maybe even 100 years. What if Bitcoin becomes it is a scarce commodity. It's a scarce commodity that has 21 million, and people really want to get that Bitcoin. If it becomes do governments actually prioritize that? I mean, I can see governments prioritizing gold back when we were at a gold reserve because of the just the sheer, not even just value, the power it holds. And that's what we saw in World War II, of how moving Bitcoin to Fort Knox and collecting Bitcoin and leveraging Bitcoin. I'm sorry, gold to Fort Knox and leveraging gold for munitions purchasing and stockpile and defense against like Hitler, and it becomes a very valuable commodity. So I don't know if I like this precedent.
Yeah. As I said earlier, like I don't believe that the U.S. or like I don't believe that a government should make Bitcoin its main currency. Like there's a lot of flexibility in having the US dollar versus uh even against like the euro, like that was kind of what was uh, a part of the euro crisis. When was that with Greece or whatever? Is
Mhm.
because their ability to create dollars. Like that's actually the problem the United States has right now. Will create euros in their sense, but right now the U.S. created too many dollars recently under Biden, um, and so like again, there is a way where Bitcoin again is, as Trump's trying to say, is like a way to hedge against the national debt. Um, but I don't think it's like uh, it's not going to plug the gap completely. It's not. It's an instrument. It's not like the only way of doing something. But again, national governments, like we look at El Salvador, have flexibility with at least the like international monetary system. With in their case, like the IMF, like they have to use uh, they had to like bend a little bit and not use so much of Bitcoin. But anyways, the whole point of this is like the incentivization of governments behind this. And again, like um, any tool the government has against citizens is probably really negative. Like in this case, like it's always going to be used really strongly against citizens. Um, not to get like all libertarian and against people, but the state is a very strong form of violence, and so this is a way where the government can come and seize assets. Like, to maybe try and transition this point, something that they said at the White House summit this week, I think it was on Friday, was that they want to stop Operation Choke Point. And, this idea of like the government being incentivized to hold Bitcoin is ostensibly uh, its own Operation Choke Point, right? Like uh, it's funny in a way to think about it like that because the government, as you put it, then gets a way and a tool to go after people who are like large Bitcoin holders or might control companies that are in charge or funds that are in charge of lots of Bitcoin in order to manipulate them. Because the bigger the pool the United States would then have of Bitcoin, the more they would be sensitive to the price and the
Right.
volatility of it. And the volatility of Bitcoin right now is very high. And that's why, again, right now, it's not at least a great tool or a great way, I would say, for a government to hold all its like currency. Because part of it is that volatility too. Anyways, I've been talking.
No, no, I agree with what you're saying. Uh, Another interesting thing is let's just go back to the crypto stockpile announcement and now the crypto summit, because what from that announcement came that this crypto summit, they signed the executive order creating a Bitcoin reserve, and then they had a Bitcoin summit a couple of days ago, and we had a lot of people join that. I mean, I guess it's not the nobody that you wouldn't expect to be there was there. I mean, for example, Tom Emmer, you said all like Brad Garlinghouse of CEO of Ripple. We had the Winklevi. We have, Michael Saylor. Obviously, we saw the videos of him taking pictures of everybody in the room because he was fanboying apparently. We had Brian Armstrong sitting next to Michael Saylor. I don't know who isn't sitting next to Saylor as well on the other side. Do you remember?
Oh, I don't know. I saw plenty of the photos. So
Yeah, I can't remember who was there, but anyway, you had everybody that you would expect to be there to be was there at this summit. you see that they're working together. But I think the interesting thing is, and one thing that we also, and one thing you heard on the All In podcast this week as well, is the attendees were all major donors of Trump, and they were all there to push through crypto as and protect their businesses. And so we're coming into a point where is this becoming some sort of like pay to play, some sort of like campaign finance, gray shady area, and then how much is this going to legitimize or delegitimize the industry? Now, this is always one of those things that you have to ask. If you see people who have donated to your campaign now have a summit in a executive order that we never thought would happen before under Biden, now happening, which is a good thing in my opinion, a positive thing. Yet, if you see it all because these people donated to your campaign, now we're looking at how much validity does this thing have? Are they doing it because of the validity of the industry, of what's being built, of the assets, or is it because hey, I donated a lot to your campaign, so therefore I owe you one? Here, so we're gonna allow you guys to have a Bitcoin reserve. We're not spending any money, but we keep whatever we have, and you guys can sit in a room with me and say that we're working on these things. Like, so what was your take of all this? Because I call that we are in an area of non-transparent campaign finance, greasy palm, donation money, kind of like lobbying for my things. And last thing is I want to say is on the show, the Daily Show, everybody listens to. I've been saying if you want to be not financial advice, if you want to hedge against the future, make sure you're into the coins that you see the people in those rooms, the people who donated, the people who are talking, the people that you're hearing about. If they're going to be associated with the Trump campaign, and we see that Garlinghouse was there, Armstrong was there, the Winklevi, Anatoly Yakovenko was. I don't know if he was there or not, but David Sachs is very much
I
connected.
understood that Anatoly from Solana was there.
Oh, he was? Oh, so Anatoly was there, and David Sachs and Solana go way back with Craft Ventures being investors. So it's like you're seeing insider baseball there, no?
Yeah, 100%. You know, I don't think it's necessarily a reflection of so much of like a negativity on the industry itself, and more so a reflection on the government being, and in this case with Trump, like way more overly just more out in the open about and more brazen, I guess, and how they will work with people in this type of kind of pay to play. You know, if you donated with me, that means you get a seat at the table. It doesn't. I don't know what that necessarily means for the strength of our democracy, but you're right in saying that it puts these projects in a position of more or less power, right? Because they'll be able to start directing and dictating how policy functions. You know, and this is one of the previous things about FTX and why, in some ways, it's really positive to see a lot of names and a lot of people included here, because and in a name that's not included on the little list of people I shared with you, just here in our notes, was CZ from Binance. Apparently, he was invited and may have been at the dinner or something like that as well. So again, it's like it's all these similar folks who previously, like FTX and SBF. This is why, like, the talking point of him being on Tucker Carlson. It's like, get this fucking guy off the screen. He wanted to shut everybody out of these conversations. You know, and so it's really positive to see at least a like colorful look at the crypto world. You know, I would say the like DeFi representation isn't super strong, but there's a variety of exchanges. There's a couple kind of fintech projects in there, like Robinhood. There's some politicians who are interested. There are some strong funds like Paradigm and MicroStrategy, Sailor, obviously, Multicoin with Kyle Samani. So again, there's a colorful kind of palette of like people who work in the industry there. Obviously, there's these types of people would be at the table every time. But I saw a great great tweet the other day, which was like, I don't, I don't think there's a single woman that was invited. There are a lot of strong women in the space. Kathy Wood, longtime Bitcoin supporter.
Caitlin Long.
Kristen Smith from
I think
Blockchain Association.
Caitlin Long was invited, but she didn't go.
Okay, but again, like the overall point is that it has been very male dominated, and there are women in positions of power in this industry who should rightly have a seat at that table. So that is something of note.
I agree with that. I do know Caitlin Long. I think Caitlin Long was invited. I do want to go down that. I think it's valid to go down that rabbit hole, but I also don't want to go too deep down the rabbit hole of inclusivity in that way.
I don't think so, but I do think there's people on their merit who should just be there.
Like I 100% agree.
Way more than Kyle Samani, that guy. That's probably to me the name where I'm just like, that guy shouldn't fucking be there. Yeah, he's a big.
I would say Isaiah Jackson too. Or what did he say? What did he write? Bitcoin Black America.
Yeah, right. So there are people who have their merit in question to be attending this. They obviously may have been big donors. Like, what does the Intercept say that Kyle Samani donated? I think it was like $100,000 and then like $80,000 somewhere else. Anyways, he was a donor.
That's my exact point that I want to make is that this is the date. Crypto, crypto, Web3, decentralized ideas, technology, privacy, ownership. Our ownership are all valid industries and ideas to very much appreciate for merit-based and merit alone. And so what we see here is we see a pay-to-play, like you said, coming in here, which I personally do think invalidates or kind of tarnishes the industry. And I mean that because there are people who already dislike the industry because of the meme coins, because of the NFTs, because of the Beanie Baby kind of ideas of it. And that's what they go. It's like, oh, this is Beanie Babies and whatever. And without understanding that the levels and the depths of what's being worked on, and which is a shame. And you're not going to be able to talk to these people. These people are like the Rachel Maddows. These people are the crystal balls from Breaking Points. These people are out there. They're very popular, and they're gonna just mouth off bullshit about the industry as a whole, as though everything is a Beanie Baby, and it's honestly disingenuous and dishonest. However, it's almost hard to make a case now that says, hey, again, you have a bunch of crypto bros in no, like, again, you said, no women, that are now like hanging out with Trump because they're donors, and you have a industry that is also playing both sides of the field and have been, that they don't care who your loyalty is. They'll put $1 million into Kamala and $1 million into Trump, and whoever wins, that's my boy. I'm gonna keep putting $1 million into you, which shows that the ethics of and the maybe moral clarity of some of these companies and people, it's not in politics. It's not for the people. It's for getting a seat at that table. Now, good if it's moving the industry forward. I'm sorry, the system is set up the way it is, and you have to donate. You have to do these things to even get the seat at the table. At the same time, if it's only for getting the seat at the table and not for a greater good that I think you're going for, and I don't want to play like left or right politics, even though that's what's being played. However, it makes me wonder what the people in that room's like moral or mission for their businesses actually is. if you couldn't play both sides so easily. If you could just,
Yeah, like I mean, I understand like kind of the essence of what you're saying is that crypto should be trying to destroy that
the game that
situation.
they're playing,
And a lot,
exactly. The game that they're
yeah,
playing, crypto
the
should be
game
trying
that
to
they're playing
destroy.
should be, yeah, which, yeah, like I for one, am for like the idea of decentralization, um, and governance, right? Like that doesn't fall in line with how Trump uh wants to govern, or at least like has an idea of governance. Um, he definitely doesn't want to decentralize things. He definitely doesn't want to cede decision making to other people, or allow for uh, democratized decision making. So, um, yeah, it's interesting to think about because it's a struggle for. It's kind of like the irony of the whole situation is like, oh, should crypto go mainstream, or should you try to make mainstream crypto, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and
Good
it's
point.
like, well, what what do we have to do? And this is something where walking out of East Denver, Patrick and I had a lot of thoughts about, which was basically like, uh, a lot of these crypto conferences are just vacuums and echo chambers. You're talking to the same people about the same things. Um, what you need to be doing is going out and like preaching this gospel to other people, going to other events, and if your product works in another is adjacent to any sort of other industry, you should be going to the trade shows for that and teaching the people there about how crypto makes their product or their industry better. So this was falling out in line from DPIN, seeing all these DPIN projects. Like if you're a solar panel project that is improved with blockchain and data and AI, and go to solar panel conferences. Don't be going. Well, maybe go to one or two crypto ones, but like be on the front foot of going out to the non-crypto world, because
That's
that's
a
what's important.
that's a good transition. When you're talking about going to solar powders, talk about DePIN. Here's a question from Nick. Nick says, here's a crypto related question. How will Web3 and crypto be interconnected moving forward? Are domains on blockchain going to be a thing that catches on, or is it just a fad? Recently, Litecoin.ltc Litecoin domains became available and also worked out with wallets. After buying a couple, I had to stop myself because at the end of the day, I don't know what to do with them. Can you answer that question? When you're talking about DePIN, when you're talking about solar, whatever, how will Web3 and crypto be interconnected? How do you feel? And is there anything that you can do with it right now, like the .eth, .ltc, whatever domains that people buy?
Yeah. So to like uh, maybe go as far forward as I can with this, and then try and unpack it, right? Because Balaji, you know him, Balaji Srinivasan has some like great podcasts, some probably great YouTube videos you could find where he's talking about this idea, and it's this idea of what a .sol, .sol, .eth, .eth, .btc, .ltc. Like unstoppable domains is a
Right.
DApp that kind of uses this. You can create your own names. ENS, Ethereum Name Service. So, anyways, what this is like where Balaji goes with it. He goes is like, well, where is the name derived? Like, how do you get a name? And like, what your name is, and this kind of falls into what we were just talking about with like states and stuff. What state power is what is your name? Well, a lot of names can come from like way back when governments needed to conscript people and put them into an army, and then be able to, or at least count people in town, so that when they needed to go to war, they knew how many people they had available, um, in order to do that. And so your name, like even a modern name of like your name on paper, like your name on your birth certificate from the state of Texas or the state of California or wherever the hell you're from, or Peru or wherever, China. That's the government saying this is your name and validating who you are. Where this idea of the network state, Balaji is like pushing forward is like you could create your own identity based on a .sol or a .eth, where then what you're doing is you're like declaring allegiance to those values, to the like network state of Litecoin or the network state of Ethereum, where then what you're saying is that I am like pursuing this sort of value, these sort of digital values, and that the digital values of this product or of this like digital asset are like how I pursue and like act online. So yeah, it's so the idea of like whether or not a .ltc has value right now, I don't know. It's all based on like how you value the .ltc ecosystem. I think, and I forget what like the other part of the question there was, is but like I do think that in the future there is this idea of like creating an idea, um, yeah, like having your own domain associated with yourself. So like I don't know, what if you were there's already like parts of this where like people put like microchips in themselves though, you know, and then like buzz into stuff. But imagine there's that with blockchain. Like I don't know, it's like it starts to get into the degrees of like how you want to digitize your life. Because then it's like, okay, imagine if you had uh like that project Step In, where it was like counting your steps on Solana. And there's
Right.
like this idea of like move to earn. And so what if they started to start like putting all of this data on blockchain? Like all if you had like a smart Apple Watch on blockchain and they started doing all of that and it was
Well, wasn't the
associated
stuff in
with
data
a
on,
like
the stuff in data was on blockchain though. It was on Solana, no?
yeah. But so this is my point. It's like, okay, well, so what is a .ltc? Well, okay, so then what type of like data are you going to want to use and like build for this type of identity domain? You could probably use this in a lot of different ways. I'm not too sure, but this is just like where I think the idea can grow and where it can go.
hmm hmm Yeah, so I mean that's a really good point about stepping. So like, so my answer to you, Nick, is there is a lot of stuff that is kind of like Web3 adjacent as of right now. What can you really do with these domains besides receive Ethereum, Litecoin, Solana, blah blah, or connect your wallets and there? I mean, there's a little bit of ID, there's a little bit of validation,
It's
there's a
like
little bit of
imagine if Litecoin partners with PlayStation in the future, like, and then you know, then your .ltc is then your PlayStation name, and then as you're like running around killing monsters, you're earning some token in a game that then you can trade on an exchange for LTC. Like this is that's the like future of like where the digitization of this can go. It's like you can have interoperability between these names, and then hopefully in the future, like for example, Sui, the blockchain on Move, they have announced that they're building like a um, Game Boy PSP type hand like video game. Uh, and so in the future, like you could be earning tokens, running around doing that on the blockchain. You could be doing it offline, and then when you like go online, it like registers, or like I'm sure there's ways to do it. Or if you could always be on Wi-Fi, something like that.
sure.
That's the future,
Well,
right?
what I get, what I guess I'm trying to say is that Web3 is already here, and just because it's not using an LTCA.eth.sol or whatever, it doesn't mean that
Hmm.
the fundamentals are already not being used. It's a more of like an Internet of Things, Web3, blockchain slash real life, bridged with oracles, yada yada. All of this is actually built already, and I think that a lot of people don't. And I think we're getting to the point where these things are coming out, where they're becoming sort of like the pseudo mainstream. I think Stepin was one of them, where people don't realize that that is Web3. They're using
Hmm.
Web3 already. When you're using, say, I think OpenSea, that is Web3. It might be a clunky version of Web3 that it's not as seamless as a lot of people want it to be, but I would still call that early Web3 because it's Web2 with crypto interface, with a digitization of digital assets that are non fungible. Like this is all like what we're talking about, you know. Even if you want to go into like more of an Internet of Things sort of idea of it. And so Nick, my answer to you is, and you heard Kyle's, my answer to you is, it's already there. Just because you don't use .ltc doesn't mean that Web3 isn't there. And honestly, we didn't know what Web2 was until we started talking about Web3 because we were so used to Web2, and some of us were born into the middle of Web2, and we didn't even actually understand what was going on. It was just what was happening, you know. And I think that that's what's kind of happening with Web3. It's just like,
or if you're building if you build a business on and you accept Litecoin, right? Or you accept assets on the Litecoin network, you could just make your business name .ltc, and then if somebody wants to send you Litecoin, you just give them that. That's a very simplistic version of that. It's like, you know, working in Web3 and like sending some payments to people. Sometimes some people's stuff is just their like, you know, actual Twitter name .eth, and it's like, oh wow, this is convenient.
Moving on to a next listener question. This is how I feel today, by the way. Why is everybody giving us so much time to buy the bottom? The markets are trash right now, so I prefer not to talk with them. But since the markets are trash, they're not really trash, but they're trash. OSSO wrote in and said, and this is one of my favorite questions because I answered it in depth a couple weeks back, but somebody asked it again. He's like, I've been listening to quite a number of podcasts for a while now, but I keep returning to yours. Thank you for the hard work. I have a question. What generally can you say about investing in crypto based on age and demographics? This is something you mentioned a short while back. I would love to hear your opinion, both in general and nuance as well, on investing based on both income, net worth, and age. Many thanks. And I love this question. This might be a little bit hard to unpack in the next 18 minutes, but I'm gonna try to do it. And then Kyle, I want your opinion. So one thing I wish I knew when I was say about 25, 20, maybe even 23, is that time is a very good benefit for a lot of things. And being young, you do two things. Number one, when you're young, you always take risks. And everybody's like, oh, I don't want to take risks. No, everything when you're young is risk because you're poor. So if you want to go move somewhere and you go to school, it's a risk because you're poor. If you're dating this new person and you know, and it doesn't work out, it sucks because you're young and you don't have the experience. You know, it's like everything is a risk when you're young, in my opinion. If you want to go travel, it's something new. It's a risk. And so when you're young, you're taking risks. So take risks. Always take risks. It's easy to take risks and understand what you're doing is always a risk. So it takes more risks. Takes more risks to start a business and all those other things. That's one thing I wish I always knew. I've always been really good with money, saving money, having enough money. I've never had emergencies. Even if I made no money, I always had money on the side. So I would say always take risks. And also with those risks, always budget yourself an income that you can invest into different things. So look, investing something like, let's just call, I did this this study like a while back for somebody else who asked this question. He's like, is it too late to buy Bitcoin and have big gains? It's already $100,000. I'm like, bro, you're 20 years old. If you put $50 in Bitcoin, you know, for the next 20 years, let's say you get to my age, right? You get to my age and in 20 years and you put $50 away into that. Just look at the compound. How much Bitcoin will you have? How much do you think Bitcoin could be worth in 20 years? Let's just say it hits that $500,000 mark. Let's just say it hits that $1 million mark. And you accumulated 1 or 2 or 3 Bitcoin throughout that time of just playing with that long game. You're going to be the only 40-year-old you know that's able to retire. You're going to be the only 40-year-old that you know that has their house paid off, their car paid off. You might have 2 kids and a family. As long as you keep that 20-year time frame of I'm going to wait 20 years to get that payoff. And if you have $2 or $3 or $4 million in the bank, no, you're not going to be that person that's like 50 million, 100 million buying Lambos and have like a house on the beach. But trust me, if you have a couple million in the bank, you're better than 95% of the people and everybody you know at your age, and probably 100% of the people you know at your age. So my opinion to you is that, one, continue to take risks. Make sure that you understand you can build the life that you want. So you don't have to be beholden to a boss or an office or a 9 to 5 job. Everything that you're doing right now is a risk if you're young. So just take more that actually moves you in the way that you want to live the life you want to live, and play the long game and understand that 40 years old is not old. But if you have a 20 years of investing, then you can have a nest egg that will substantially put you ahead in a position of everybody else. And trust me, it doesn't sound like a lot of money, but $2 or $3 million, it might not be, super mega rich. It is fine to set you up, have the time that you need to raise your family or whatever, pay off your house, and you will be having a different life than everybody else, and everybody will be absolutely jealous of you. The last piece of advice I would give this person is do not make excuses for not doing the thing. If you say you're going to buy $50 a week or $100 a week of Bitcoin or any stock or S&P 500, it doesn't matter what you're doing. Don't say, "Oh, but I have to buy a car." No, you can't buy it while still doing that. Then you wait another week or month or two or half a year. "Oh, I'm going to get married." Doesn't matter. "Oh, I have this emergency." It doesn't matter. Everybody makes excuses of why you can't do something. If it's working out, eating right, uh, investing, saving, or doing everything that you don't like to do. And when you make that excuse, the other excuse is right next to it. I can't go to the gym because I'm tired. Well, then your next day you're tired, or I'm sick, or oh, my back hurts a little bit. It's always something. And so those are my three advices to him. So anyway, so what he says, I'm based on age and demographics. If you're young, it doesn't matter where you're from, make a plan that makes sense for you, and push it out for 20 years. And the last thing I would say is, if you think you're going to get rich quick, don't. Older people panic, especially if you're my age. They go, "Oh my God, I'm 45 or I'm 50 years old and I'm not rich yet." So it's like, then they panic and they start putting their, like, you see that. It's like people are like, "I'm going to mortgage my house so I can get rich and retire." You're kind of screwed already, man. You should have been planning from when you're 20. Now you still have to play the short game, or the shorter long game of how do you set yourself up for the next 20 years. So if you're 45 now and 65, you can retire. And it's the same plan. You're just doing it a lot later in life. What do you think, Kyle?
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree that being young and taking risks is smart. I personally spent quite a number of years abroad in my younger years outside of the United States. I know you spent a lot of time as well outside the United States, Matt. I think those types of experiences are really empowering. And that's actually what got me into crypto, was seeing how crypto was a better cross-border payment service than most things. But yeah, investing based on demographics in crypto, like what I would say is like dollar cost averaging as well is really smart. Um, as you said, like being able to put in whatever valuation you think is necessary, $50, $25, even $10 a week, uh, you know, compounds over time. Like time is one of your best assets when it comes to this. If you don't start today, the best day to start was yesterday, right? With some of this, so just take what you can and start a little bit. Um, finding the moonshots is extremely difficult. I think what we've seen in the news recently with um, all the cabal news around the Melania Trump, the Libra token, uh, all that stuff. It's very indicative of um, how some of these markets are manipulated. And then, yeah, just watching out for things like sniper bots and flash bots on your trades, MEV bots, that sort of thing. There's always people out there to try and extract value from you. We were talking earlier about the government being, somebody big bad to watch out for, but at the same time, there's always the other side of this, like the dark, eerie web that's out to get you. So yeah, just being aware of like especially in crypto, be aware of things like your permissions, like where you've given your wallet permission to. Um, being educated on like just kind of how you can be exploited. A good defense in crypto is a good offense as well. Um, being able to spot red flags, and that sort of thing. What I would say as well with like demographics, and as you said, Matt, like it's never too late to start. Like 40 years old is not young, or it's not old. It's pretty young in the relative terms of like if you're going to be investing in terms of retirement, like you still have 20 years, 25 years. Um, Obviously, better to start as early as possible. If you can do it in your 20s, wonderful. If you can do it earlier, even better. If you can do it as soon as possible, that's the best. When it comes to crypto, what I would say is always do your research. When you're looking at projects to invest in, like take a look at what the project is. There's a lot of ways you can check out red flags. Just go to the website, go see what the team is, peruse the white paper. Like if it's something you want to invest in for a while or put a hefty chunk of money in, make sure it's a serious project that won't rug pull, or has a reputable team, maybe has good investment backing so that it's supported for its development. Checking out roadmaps as well, being sure that projects have a good roadmap that's attainable. This kind of is potentially a transition point into that CZ news I shared, because one of the things CZ from Binance has been kind of tweeting about recently is like uh, basic kind of KPI metrics to unlock tokens. And we actually wrote about this this past week on Daily Crypto News. Samuel wrote about it. And yeah, it's an interesting idea of like, okay, if you have a token and you have like this unlock mechanism, you should be able to like set better better unlock mechanisms so that like VCs are not just dumping on people, and make sure that like people are locked in based on the um, performance of the project, instead of just like a project's valuation shooting out of the gate. Have it be based on um, what's happening with the project. So it's about being more ethical with the token launches.
Yeah. No, so I agree. I want to add my caveat with that, to looking at investments. I don't trust. I said this on the show. I don't trust any of these new companies. If you haven't been there for about 5 years at this point, and I don't care your market cap. Everyone wants to get on the early new cap, and you could get a moonshot. But the real fact of the matter is I like to see a team that's been working and has been sticking around. One thing I have said multiple times, I really respect the team at XYO, is because I've seen them start a company, almost fail in the company, get blow up and get a lot of market cap, and then go right back down, have to lay off people, move offices, downsize, and Kyle left, downsize, and then come back and continue to be there. And that's kind of what I look for in a that's what I kind of look for in a project, is somebody who is a project that has been sticking around and it has figured out how to weather the storms. Because what you see in any of these companies and markets is that uh, people and companies don't plan for if the bottom falls out. They don't plan for the 2008 recession. They don't plan for COVID. And next thing you know, they're calling up people and asking to borrow money, or they're trying to, or they're going bankrupt for the most part. If it wasn't for a government bailout or whatever, it's going to be for some companies like airlines. They're like, oh, because of all the stock buybacks, they're like, oh, well, we can't survive, and now we have to, instead of saving our money, we need to get a bailout. So the crypto companies are no different. If they have a good token launch and they make Kyle's back, um,
Yeah.
if they have a good token launch and they make millions, and they have a good token launch and they make millions, some of these companies just don't know how to weather bear market, and so they go down. Your video is so much better now, Kyle. Though. So anyway, that's what I was. That's how I'll add. I'm so confused now because you left and now I'm distracted. Last thing last
Yeah,
thing
sorry.
is they. Yeah, no worries, no worries. Last thing everybody was asking is, should I buy Bitcoin? And I would say yes. That's not financial advice. It is sounds like financial advice, but it isn't. It isn't. It's a question with an answer. I'm not telling you what to do, Jackson. Jackson, you look. I don't know. Actually, you don't look grown. You look like a baby. Why are you listening to my show if you're a baby, Jackson?
Yeah, that's an early stage. Looks like he has a baby who has a baby.
It's a baby that has a baby. I don't know if I like this, Jackson. I don't know if I can reply to you, Jackson. You're a baby that has a baby. But if you were a grown
It's
person,
never too late to buy Bitcoin. That's the point.
or never too early.
Yeah. Well, and if you to get back to this idea of like, the .LTC and stuff, it's like, if you really believe in where this industry is going, because I heard Balaji explain it one time in person. I saw him speaking on stage somewhere. I forget where it was. Um, and right, like I have a strong passion for the Catalan uh, independence movement. It's something I've studied, and just like understanding it. They're a group in Spain it's a region of Spain that a lot of people there speak a different language. They kind of want to be their own country. They've had independence movements, but there's a subset of that independence movement that believes it would be possible to like buy land in, say, like Guatemala, somewhere outside of Europe, and start a like new Catalonia. And it's this idea that Balaji took, and he cited it like in this speech that I was watching, where he was like, imagine a place, and this is like what the Bitcoin Island is. This is like what they're trying to do in like I think it's the nation state of Tuvalu or Marshall Islands DAO, stuff like that. Where like by going there, you could create your own identity. If you went to the Bitcoin Satoshi Island, you could then be declare like, I'm now Matt.btc, or I'm now, instead of Kyle, I'm Kile.btc. And I take on this new identity and I declare myself to these new values of like, digital ownership and decentralization and proof of work, you know, uh, that sort of thing. So there's a like distillation of this idea that comes to like, okay, where will future societies exist, and how can they like intermingle and be put together? It's interesting.
I have an idea of like, I really hate, even though I like the crypto industry, just so many of these tokens or companies have went just stopped working. There are people still in the space right now that are prominent that have just abandoned tokens or projects like years ago, and they're just still there. They're still trading, and they're off doing
Mhm.
something else. You're like, hey, what about this other project that you've been working on? And he's like, we don't do that anymore. And it's like, I almost look at it like, if you're not investing in Bitcoin, Ethereum, or even like the top, whoever's in the top 20, if you will, and that could be, even saying that is, I would say, risky. If you think, like what you said, if you think the industry is going to a certain place, what are some of like the building blocks or foundations of those companies that you could maybe look into invest? For example, EVs. Everybody said EVs was going to go somewhere, and then with EVs, growing, people more so, instead of investing in, say, the EV company Tesla, they invested in rare minerals, they invested in lithium, they invested in cobalt, they invested in energy production and storage, the everything that around the energy production and storage. And so I would look also into like the digital asset space. What would be the second, third, or fourth order products or supporting industries that would help that grow? It's kind of like, kind of like what you said. If the Catalonians were going to move somewhere, maybe I would be looking at real estate in Guatemala to sell them instead of investing into Cantalone right now.
Well, I mean, to answer your question directly, like what to look for. I think projects that are um, building and decentralizing compute power, because I mean, this is just a main theme everywhere. As more and more AI starts to exist everywhere,
Like Render.
you know, more than that. Like what's his name? Austin Federa, the former comms guy from, I think I spoke about this recently on here, because he spoke about it at Mountain Now, and it was about how he's just working with like a company that's like building to improve cable power, like just cables, like no cable, no, it's just legit hardware, like make cables better, make them have more power to push more data and throughput and everything. And it's like, and undersea cables, like cables that we use to, it's like the internet, right? It's connected across the world by mostly by cables under the water, like that we put on the bottom of the ocean. Like it's still very tenuous. Like it's still like okay, and we could be updating a lot of these. That's like a whole Earth situation. Like how do we do this whole thing? But there are projects doing that like on a smaller scale, like in the DePIN level too, like Aether. But as you said, like render projects, you can rent your compute power to. Because as AI, again, AI is everywhere. AI is just blowing up. So that's going to be the biggest problem, is how you can maintain, supplying the power for the demand of AI,
Right.
because that's going to power everything that we do. Not everything, but so much.
All right, we're at about an hour. Is there anything you want to end on, sir?
Um, what I would say is, yeah, it's exciting to see the Bitcoin summit happen. To see a lot of these leaders finally like talking in the White House. Um, uh, in some ways, regardless of who's at the helm there. But yeah, it remains to be seen how they're gonna how this is all gonna shake out. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'll add on that in the crypto summit is that I am disappointed that we didn't get some bombshells because I like number go up, but I'm not surprised, and I think that is probably healthier for the industry. I would tell everybody to keep an eye out and be vigilant about who's working with who and who's in that room. And if they're going to be in that room and they stay in good graces, then I would very, very, very seriously look at their projects, because it does look like a insider greasy palm sort of situation of pay to play. So read that list of who was in that room and follow them very closely.
Oh yeah, and follow like who Paradigm is investing in.
No, that's true. Oh, right. That's a good
It's
one.
one of the people in
Who,
the room.
who are the investors investing in after they get out of that room?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right, Kyle. Thanks a lot. And thanks for the 100 people that are listening after our third week of lives, I think. So we appreciate you again. Kyle over here, Kyle at dailycryptonews.net, Matt at dailycryptonews.net. You can go to Spotify. You'll find this episode there as well. Was I post it if we get a good download, I hope. Comment question. You can ask questions or comments on Spotify. And of course, sign up to our newsletter, dailycryptonews.net, where Kyle and his team puts out original articles. So you're not going to see just us copy paste what was on CoinDesk or Decrypt or The Block, which they all have the same damn news. It's actually quite annoying. We try to look at different products and projects and write from basically first principles and critical thinking. So we appreciate you for subscribing and helping us with this channel. So thanks, Kyle. We'll see you next week.
Ciao.
Cool. That was that. I am uploaded.